Um, Good evening, fellow interns and colleagues. The time is 3 minutes past 6 o'clock. So we are going to start with our session because we said we'll start promptly at 6 o'clock. And I just want to welcome you to the 2023 pre-registration examination online workshop. And I'll take this time to convey a message from the COO, the registrar. They are wishing you all the very best in your internship year. They would have all loved to be here to join you, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they could not manage to join you tonight. But they want to wish you all the best for 2023. Make the best of it and enjoy the pre-registration year. Well, tonight, in terms of our presenters, we've got, okay, that is the layout of our program. We're going to have a session of the calculation section that will be presented by Prof. Jay Steenekamp. We'll see his picture will come on the next slide, and there will be examples of the calculation that Prof will go through, and that's Prof. Steenekamp. He is our pre-registration moderator. He's been with us for quite a while. He's very well vested and experienced in terms of the pre-reg exam. And we are having Ms. Refilo Mohale. She is also our pre-registration examiner. She's been with us also for quite a while. She's very well experienced in terms of pre-registration exam. And we also have Dr. Diane Johnston. She is our moderator now, and she was formerly with Pharmacy Council. You will hear her presenting in terms of what is expected from an intern and how to log in and how to adjust your profile pics and preparing for the exam, the examination date and CPT dates. And I welcome our presenters as well. And we also have our senior manager, who's Miss Kamohelo Malaku. The next slide there, dear. And she is our senior manager at pre-registration examination, Miss Kamohelo Malaku, and I'm the manager there, Mr. Khotsuko Maloka. And you can also call me KG. We're going to take you through the pre-registration year, and you'll be interacting a lot with us if you have not thus far interacted a lot with us, but that is Kamohelo Malaku and Khotsuko Maloka. I know, as we said previously, there's always that tongue twister. You can also call me KG. Well, in terms of the format of the examination, which is our next slide, the pre-registration examination is set out as 120 multiple choice questions. Of course, it is split over 2 days. Normally, day one, we start with the calculation section, which is 40 questions, and it's allocated for 2 hours with a sub minimum of 60%. And the second day will be a day that is dedicated for the general section, which is having 80 questions, 80 multiple choice questions. It's written for 2 hours and 30 minutes. There's a sub minimum of 50%, but overall an intern must be able to attain 50% in order to be deemed successful or competent in the whole overall pre-registration examination. So also just a reminder that the practice pre-reg exam is compulsory for those that are writing the pre-reg exam. The practice exam is scheduled for the 1st of June. Bookings has already opened. There are interns that have already made their bookings towards this examination, and communication has already been sent out, I'm sure by Tuesday. All interns that are eligible, actually all interns that are supposed to write the practice exam have received the communication from SAPC to start with the bookings, and they have thus far done that, because for the practice exam there are no entrance examination requirements. For one to be deemed competent, they need to write both section day 1 and day 2. You don't have to choose. Both sections are very important, calculation as well as the general section. And on the next slide, our questions are, they are set from three sectors, that is community, institutional, and manufacturing. So all interns are expected to complete questions from these sectors. Historically, or in the past, questions were sector specific, but now every intern is expected to answer questions that are coming from the community, institutional, or manufacturing section. And also we are referring to, I know Prof. Steenekamp will talk about this as well, we are referring to the domain competency, and that is where our questions are coming from. That's where our questions are set from. So for now, I'm going to give over to our pre-registration moderator, Prof. Steenekamp. He's going to be taking us through what the examination is based on, as well as the calculations side of the questions and the examples that will follow. Prof. Steenekamp, I welcome you, and over to you, Prof. Thank you.
KG, thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction. From my side to the interns as well, welcome to tonight. My aim for tonight regarding the calculations will be, rather than to give you an example of everything, is to teach you a basic approach and give you some pointers and tips on how to approach the calculation section of the paper. So first off, we can start with what is the examination based on. Now, the questions is based on the competency standards that was published for pharmacists in 2018, and broadly in 6 domains. And on the left-hand side of this slide, you will see the percentage of questions that can be allocated to a particular domain. May I have the next slide, please? We have developed, or rather Council has developed, a blueprint for the paper based on the domains and the competency standards. And the questions comes from 4 domains, 1, 2, 3, and 4. What I would like to note here is that approximately 80% of the questions comes from domain 2 and 3 respectively. The other domains contribute a little bit less of a percentage, and it's based on the type of questions that can be asked, and calculations are very specific. So it is not possible to do a calculation on every domain. So when you prepare, please ensure that you spend enough time in preparing for the different types of calculations. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of the type of calculations that you can expect, on this slide and the next slide as well, you will see a breakdown of the type of questions that you can expect, and it's divided according to the competency standards. For instance, if you take a look at competency standard 2.4, that relates to medicines and medical devices safety, you will see you can expect calculations on dose calculations, concentrations, dilutions, osmolarity, isotonicity. So these 2 slides will give you an indication of what you can expect. I think it should be noted that you won't get a calculation on everything that's on these 2 slides in a particular exam, but you should be able to do all of these types of calculations. Next slide. And the next one as well, please, Dan. That brings us to, how do you prepare for this exam? Now, if you would like to use textbooks, and we really recommend that you take a look at textbooks. Of the two textbooks that are highlighted on this slide, the one to the right, Pharmaceutical Calculations by Ansel, is the most comprehensive one. And if you use this textbook to prepare for the exam, that will give you a thorough grounding in to see whether you will be able to do the calculations. Just a word of caution on the textbooks and how you use them. Use the textbooks prior to the exam. In other words, when you prepare for the exam. Although it is an open book exam, remember an open book exam has a lot of preparation time beforehand. The textbooks will have very limited value in the venue itself because you won't have time to look up every calculation. You are limited to 2 hours for 40 calculations. That gives you about 3 minutes per calculation. So you should be well versed in the calculations before you enter the venue or wherever you're going to write this exam. Please do not take the book to check up every calculation while you're writing the exam. There will not be enough time. Next slide, please. A few tips on what to do when you prep for the exam. Please make sure that you are aware of what units mean. For instance, percentage weight per volume represents the number of grams per 100 ml of solution. Similarly, percentage volume per volume represents the number of milliliters of your active in 100 ml of solution. What is advisable is that when you prepare for this exam, understand the principle behind a specific calculation. Do not try to memorize your calculations. The moment you're starting to try and memorize your calculations, the moment you get into an exam venue and you get confused, you might forget what you memorized. So rather than memorizing calculations, try to understand the principle so that you can recognize a particular calculation. Furthermore, for those of you who want to take in formula sheets, please do so. For example, the very well-known C1V1 equals C2V2 is a typical formula that you can take in on a formula sheet. Just one word on formula sheets. It's fine to take in a formula sheet, but you need to understand and know what the symbols in a particular formula means. There's no value in taking a formula sheet if you don't understand what the symbols in a specific formula means. And in terms of equipment, very important, your calculator that you are going to use. Make sure that it is the same calculator that you use to practice during the preparation time for the exam. Do not take a different calculator. Also, make sure that the batteries of your calculator are fine so that they don't die on you while you're busy with the exam. If you're not sure, rather replace them before you write the exam. You can make also sure that you take enough paper and pens. The paper will be for your rough work, and take more than one pen just for in case if your pen dies on you while you're practicing. Rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. Next slide, please. Another tip for those of the interns who do experience difficulties with conversions, you are welcome to take a conversion chart into the exam venue. As an example, on this slide, there is a conversion chart for weights. If you take a look on the left-hand side of this image, it starts with micrograms. Then as we progress to the right-hand side, we progress from micrograms to milligrams to grams to kilograms. If you want to know how to use this chart, very simple. If you want to convert from micrograms to milligrams, you follow the black arrows or dark gray arrows. You take your microgram unit, divide by 1,000 to get to milligrams. Similarly, to convert from milligrams to grams, you divide by 1,000, and to convert from grams to kilograms, you also divide by 1,000. If you want to go the opposite direction, let's say you want to convert from kilograms to grams, you take your kilogram unit and you multiply by 1,000 to get the answer in grams. Means that you follow the yellow arrows. So to convert from kilograms to grams, you multiply by 1,000. To convert from grams to milligrams, you multiply by 1,000. And to convert from milligrams to micrograms, you multiply by 1,000. Next slide, please. Similar to the weights conversion chart, you can also set up one for volumes. Works exactly the same as the weights one. If you start on the left-hand side with microliters, want to convert to milliliters, you divide by 1,000. To convert from milliliters to liters, divide by 1,000. And to convert from liters to kiloliters, you divide by 1,000. If you want to go the opposite direction in conversions, you just follow the yellow arrows. Next slide. Another few tips. And these tips on this slide are more for while you're busy with your exam. First off, when you get in a calculation, it is important that you identify the type of calculations. For instance, if it's a dilution, you need to identify it as such and then select the appropriate formula that you need to use. Another useful tip is when you do your calculations on your rough paper, work systematically, work correct, so that when you transcribe your answer to the online answer sheet, that you do not make unnecessary mistakes. A useful tip is also when you do the calculations, before you do the calculation, try to estimate a range for your answer. Remember, the calculations that you are going to see in the pre-reg exam will be examples that are relevant, and the answers that you will get will be like you will see them in practice. It's not going to be way out illogical answers. So when you get a volume, for instance, for a dose that like 1,000 liters, you should know this is not possible and your calculation is incorrect. Next slide. I've alluded to this a bit earlier. You have 40 MCQs and 2 hours, which is 120 minutes to write the exam. If you do a conversion, you will see it's about 3 minutes per question. Just one word, this is on average. You might experience a calculation that takes you a bit more than 3 minutes, and that's okay, because you are going to get easy calculations that you will be able to do in about less than a minute. So you can make up time on the easier questions to spend a little bit more time on the more complex calculations. But while you're busy with these calculations, be mindful of your time. Important to remember, no negative marking is applied. So you don't have any reason to leave any question without an answer. If you don't know the answer, you are free to guess. You have a 1 in 4 chance of guessing correct. So guessing for one or two questions might be okay. Just don't guess all of your questions. Chances of guessing all of them correct, very slim. Next slide, please. Okay, this closes up the tips section of my presentation. What we'll be doing in the next couple of slides is we're going to handle typical questions, examples that you can expect, similar questions. You will not get the same ones. The way that I'm going to handle these is we're going to do the question. I'm going to read the question, and then we're going to see if we understand the question, and then we're going to take a look at how to answer the question. In example 1, the question reads as follows. A 55-year-old male patient is stabilized on warfarin 5 mg daily at a cost of 28.80 Rand per month. The patient has his INR monitored weekly at a cost of 170.70 Rand per test. The patient has heard about rivaroxaban from his doctor and wants to know the cost implications. The cost of rivaroxaban 50 mg daily is 637.95 Rand per month. What is the difference in cost between these two options? First off, before you start answering a question, it's advisable that you see if you understand it correctly. Try and rephrase it in your own words, especially if it's a more complex calculation. For instance, in this question, we have two different treatments, warfarin and rivaroxaban, and we are asked to calculate the cost difference between these two treatment options. If we can take a look at the memo quickly. First off, let's start off with warfarin. There are two aspects to the cost of the warfarin. The first one is the tablets itself, which is 28.80 Rand per month. And then there's weekly tests. Now in a month, there's 4 tests. So that amounts to 470.80 Rand for the 4 tests. So the total cost for the warfarin will be 28.80 Rand plus the 470.80 Rand. That amounts to 499.60 Rand. So the total treatment cost for warfarin is almost 500 Rand a month. Rivaroxaban has no test costs. It's only the medicine, which is 637.95 Rand. So the cost difference between the two difference is just a subtraction. You subtract 499.60 Rand, which is the treatment cost for the warfarin, from the treatment cost of the rivaroxaban, which is 637.95, and the cost difference is 138.35 Rand. So it means that the rivaroxaban treatment is about 139 Rand more per month. Okay, next example, please. In example 2, let's start off with reading the scenario. A patient requires an intravenous infusion of 0.9% weight per volume sodium chloride. In your hospital pharmacy department, you have water for injection BP and 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution. Assuming no volume displacement effects, what volume of the 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution needs to be added aseptically to an expandable PVC infusion bag containing 100 ml of water for injection BP to produce the required sodium chloride concentration? Okay, this seems to be a more complex calculation, so let's break it up in digestible chunks. First off, you are asked to prepare a 0.9% weight per volume sodium chloride solution. The question is, what do you need to use? And they tell you you have water for injection and 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution. It's important to recognize you'll have to use both. So to progress from a 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution to a 0.9% weight per volume sodium chloride solution, we work from a high strength to a lower strength. This means that this is a dilution calculation. We can take a look at the memo, please. If you take a look at the solution to this example, you will see it's done by alligation. And the reason why you can't do a simple dilution with C1V1 equals C2V2 lies in the fact that you have to use two solutions, or a solution and a solvent rather, to do this calculation. You have to use both the 4.5% weight per volume solution as well as the water for injection to prepare a 0.9% weight per volume solution. So there's three strings at hand here. The one that I need, which is the 0.9% weight per volume solution. Then the two items that we need to use. The first one is the 4.5% weight per volume solution and water for injection. So there's three different strings. The moment that you have three different strings at play, that identifies it as an alligation calculation. Now, two of the strings, the 0.9 is what we need. That's written in the middle of the block. And then there's a 4.5%, which is easy identifiable as the one solution that we have to use. But then there is a 0% solution. Now, where does that come from? Remember, the strings that you use in an alligation calculation always refer to the active ingredient at hand. In this case, it will be sodium chloride. And water for injection doesn't contain any sodium chloride. Therefore, we assign a 0% value to it. Now, if you opted where to write your strings, and the way how we write it, the 0.9%, which is the one that we need, always in the middle. The other two is written to the left-hand side of the middle. Doesn't matter which one is on top or which one is at the bottom. You can do it either way. So what you do then is you do a plain subtraction. 4.5% minus 0.9 gives you 3.6. And 0 minus 0.9 gives you 0.9. You work with the absolute values, and very important, the answers of your subtraction is in parts. Now, the next step is, if you have the parts, you need to know how to interpret it. In simple terms, it means that you take 3.6 parts of your 0% strength, which is your water for injection, and you mix it with 0.9 parts of your 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution. So if you mix these two parts, you will get your 0.9% strength. We're not finished yet, because they asked us how much of the 4.5% strength we need to add to the PVC bag. In the PVC bag, we have 100 mils of water for injection. So we can therefore state that the 100 mils will be equal to 3.6 parts. This means you can do an ordinary proportion calculation. If 3.6 parts are equal to 100 mils, therefore 0.9 parts will be equal to how many milliliters? And then you will see you will get an answer of 25 milliliters. So it means if I take 25 milliliters of my 4.5% sodium chloride solution and I add this 25 mils to the 100 mils of water for injection, I will get the final volume of 125 mils. And the strength of this 125 mils in terms of sodium chloride will be 0.9% weight per volume. Next calculation, please. In example 3, it's a short scenario. Given that the relative molecular mass of sodium chloride is 58.5 grams per mole, what amount of sodium chloride powder is required to prepare 300 moles of a solution containing 50 millimoles per liter? Before you start with this calculation, you need to identify what is asked. They give you the molecular weight of sodium chloride, and then they ask you how much should you add of the sodium chloride to 300 moles of a solution, so that we end up with a solution with a strength of 50 millimoles per liter. To do this calculation, you need to know what millimole mean. So it's actually a definition. You need to know what millimoles mean, otherwise you won't be able to do this calculation. If we can advance to the memo, please. First off, let's identify what millimoles mean. Molecular weights is expressed in grams per mole. So for sodium chloride, the molecular weight is 58.5 grams per mole. Each mole of a substance will contain 1,000 millimole of that substance. So a millimole is 1,000th of a mole. So this means, in simple terms, if you take the numerical value of your molecular weight, which is 58.5, and you express it in milligrams, you will have 1 millimole of that substance. Therefore, for sodium chloride, 1 millimole is represented by 58.5 milligrams. So as soon as you have identified that, you can proceed with this calculation. If we know that 1 millimole is equal to 58.5 milligrams, you can multiply that by 50 because we're looking for 50 millimoles. That will give you 2,925 milligrams. So if I add 2,925 milligrams of sodium chloride to a liter of solution, the final volume will be 1 liter. You have a solution with the strength of 50 millimoles per liter. However, we are asked not to prepare a liter, but only 300 moles. So it's ordinary proportion. If 2,925 milligrams of sodium chloride in 1,000 moles represent 50 millimoles, how much do we need for 300 moles? And that is 877.5 milligrams. So this means if I weigh off 877.5 milligrams, dissolve it in water, and make up to a final volume of 300 moles, we will have a solution of sodium chloride with the strength of 50 millimoles per liter. Next calculation. Okay, example number 4. Now, example number 4 is not the type of calculation that you will encounter very frequently, especially not in community. However, in the hospital scenario and institutional scenario, you might experience it more frequently. So if you know that you do not experience these type of calculations very frequently and do struggle with them, please practice them beforehand. Let's start off with the scenario. A pharmacist receives the following prescription: ephedrine hydrochloride 0.5 grams, chlorobutanol 0.25 grams, dextrose anhydrous QS, and purified water AD 50 milliliters. And the question is, how many grams of anhydrous dextrose should be used in compounding the prescription to make an isotonic solution? And then the following details are given. The sodium chloride equivalent for a 1% weight per volume solution of ephedrine hydrochloride is 0.3, and for a 1% weight per volume solution of chlorobutanol is 0.24, and for a 1% solution of anhydrous dextrose is 0.18. This is an isotonicity calculation. And the moment you see sodium chloride equivalent values, the method that you need to use is identified. We need to calculate sodium chloride equivalents. if we can advance to the memo, please. Okay, first off, we need to convert the quantities of ephedrine and chlorobutanol in this formula to sodium chloride equivalents. We know that 1 gram of ephedrine is equivalent to 0.3 grams of sodium chloride. In our recipe, we only have 0.5 grams, so that equates to 0.15 grams of sodium chloride. Similarly, the sodium equivalent for 1 gram of chlorobutanol is 0.24 grams of sodium chloride. In the formula, we have 0.25 grams of chlorobutanol. So the sodium chloride equivalent will be 0.06 grams of sodium chloride. So the total sodium chloride equivalent for this formula is 0.21 grams. And you get that by adding the 0.15 grams of sodium chloride to the 0.06 grams of sodium chloride. If you get to this point, you now need to decide whether this is sufficient sodium chloride to render an isotonic solution or not. And the way how we determine that is by way of a 0.9% sodium chloride solution. Because a 0.9% sodium chloride solution is considered isotonic. In our formula, we don't work with 100 moles. The formula is only for 50 moles. So, isotonic solution in terms of sodium chloride, 50 moles will contain 0.45 grams of sodium chloride. In our formula, we have the equivalent of only 0.21 grams of sodium chloride. So we still need 0.24 grams of sodium chloride to render this product isotonic. Now, they ask us not to add sodium chloride. They want us to add anhydrous dextrose. But the sodium chloride equivalent for dextrose is also given. And we know that 1 gram of anhydrous dextrose is equivalent to 0.18 grams of sodium chloride. So we're looking for 0.24 grams of sodium chloride. So the equivalent dextrose quantity will be 1.33 grams of anhydrous dextrose. So when you need to prepare this product, you will take your ephedrine, you'll take your chlorobutanol, and you will take 1.33 grams of anhydrous dextrose, add that to the formula, and that will render 50 ml of solution. If you make it up to volume, that will be isotonic. Next example, please. In example 5, you will see there's a similarity to the previous example in that it's also a tonicity calculation, however, a different approach. The question reads as follows. Calculate the quantity of sodium chloride in grams that should be added to 150 moles of a 1% volume weight per volume solution of apomorphine hydrochloride to render the solution isotonic with blood plasma. And then info is given. The delta TF value of a 1% weight per volume solution of the drug and sodium chloride is 0.08 and 0.58 degrees respectively. As I said, similar to the previous one, a tonicity calculation. However, the previous one was a sodium chloride equivalent method. This one is a freezing point depression method. The moment you see a freezing point depression method, there's a formula that you can apply. If we can advance to the memo, please. So if you're an intern that would like a formula sheet, this will be one of the formulas that you add to that sheet. And the formula is W equals 0.52 minus A divided by B. Once again, remember, if you have a formula, you need to know what the symbols represent. In this formula, W represents the quantity of adjusting substance, in this case sodium chloride, that needs to be added to my product to render it isotonic. And the unit that you will get for W in this equation is percentage weight per volume. In other words, the gram of the weight of adjusting substance expressed in grams per 100 mol that needs to be added to render an isotonic solution. A represents the freezing point depression value of your solution at hand prior to adding the adjusting substance. And B represents the freezing point depression value of a 1% weight per volume solution of your adjusting substance, in this case, sodium chloride. So if we substitute 0.52 minus 0.08 divided by 0.58 will give you an answer of 0.758% weight per volume. This means I need to add 0.758 grams of sodium chloride to each 100 moles of the solution at hand to render it isotonic. Remember, the volume of the solution at hand is 150 moles, not 100 moles. So therefore, you need to do a proportion calculation, and you will get to a final answer of 1.137 grams of sodium chloride. So this means I need to weigh off 1.137 grams of sodium chloride and add it to this solution, and that will render it then isotonic. Next example, please. Okay, this is also another example of a less frequently encountered type of calculation, and it's a milliequivalent type of calculation. The question reads as follows. How many milliequivalents of potassium ion are there in a 250 milligram penicillin V potassium tablet? Then there's a note. The molecular weight of pen V is 388.48. And there is 1 potassium ion in the molecule, and the valence of potassium is 1. Okay. In terms of milliequivalent calculations, there are equations that you can get from literature. I know this in the Pharmaceutical Codex. There is a formula that you can apply. You will see on the next slide, which is the memo, a different approach is followed. That's normally the approach that I follow when I get one of these calculations, and the approach works every time. You can follow this approach, or you can use a formula. Whatever approach you use, make sure that you understand it and know how to apply it. If we can advance to the memo, please. Okay, in this memo, there's 2 calculations that you need to do before you do the actual calculation. The first calculation is you need to calculate the number of milliequivalents per millimole of the substance at hand. In this case, for pen V, it is the potassium. And the milliequivalents per millimole you calculate by using the valence and the number. And we'll quickly look at what valence I'm referring to and what number I'm referring to. The valence will be the valence of either the positive or negative species in this calculation. In this example, the valence of potassium was given. So the valence is 1 and you work with the absolute number. You discard the plus sign. The number refers to the number of that specific ion in question. In this case, it is the potassium, and there's only 1 potassium ion for each pen V molecule. So if you do the calculations, 1 multiplied by 1 gives you 1. So for PEN-V, the number of milliequivalents per millimole will be 1. This is the first calculation you do when you encounter a milliequivalent type of calculation. The second value that you need to calculate is the equivalent weight of the substance. Now, the equivalent weight you get by taking the molecular weight of the substance, in this case PEN-V, and you express the molecular weight in milligrams per millimole, and you divide it by the answer that we got in the first calculation, which is the number of milliequivalents per millimole. Remember, the molecular weight for PEN-V was given. It's 388.48. So you express it in milligrams per millimole, which is 388.48 milligrams per millimole. And you divide it by the number of milliequivalents per millimole, which is 1. And then you'll get an answer of 388.48 milligrams per milliequivalent. Okay, what does this mean? This means if I weigh off 388.48 milligrams of penicillin V, I have 1 milliequivalent of potassium. Okay, now the question is, how much milliequivalents of potassium is there in one tablet? And one tablet contains 250 milligrams of penicillin V. We know from our calculations now that 1 milliequivalent weighs 388.48 milligrams. So therefore, 250 milligrams will represent 0.644 milliequivalents of potassium. I think this brings us to the last example. We can either do if there's questions once again at the end or now, it depends on how we want to approach this. KG, if you can just give me an indication, I'm okay to do it at the end, like the previous session as well.
Yeah, maybe let's give some time. Thanks, Prof. Deanne. If we can
Thanks, KG. I don't see any questions that are being published at the moment.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do actually. Okay. Yeah, Prof, there was just a problem earlier with YouTube, and to all the students that are listening to us on YouTube, we are aware that there's a problem, and we are trying to resolve it as quickly as possible. You can also see us on Facebook. Otherwise, you can join the Teams live event, and all these other channels are working.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Deanne. Thanks, Prof.
Pleasure.
So if anybody has any questions, if you could quickly type them in the chat. Otherwise, keep them on your mind, write them down, or send them through to us as soon as you think about them. And we'll be able to answer them after our next session. So let me move to that slide. So what's going to happen now is that to review the general part of the pre-registration examination, we need for you to please follow the survey link and complete the questions. So there are 6 questions that we are requesting that you complete. Please note that we cannot track back any responses. This is completely anonymous, and we're using this as a means to gauge where students are and to help us in facilitating appropriate feedback. So please just take the time to go through these questions. There are no questions in the chat yet, so let's take the questions for the calculation sections towards the end of the presentation. But for now, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We will start again at 7:03. So it's currently it is 6:52, so we'll be starting at 7:03. So use this time to grab a cup of coffee and don't forget to join us again. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've taken this opportunity to complete the survey and these few questions, and we'll get to this in a few minutes. I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Refilwe Mkhale, and she is an examiner that will be taking us through the general section of the question of the presentation today. So very, very warm welcome, and thank you for joining us, Refilwe.
Thank you, Diane. Good evening, everyone. My name is Refilwe. As I have been introduced, I will take you through the general questions. So with the general questions, we're looking also, like as Prof mentioned earlier, we're looking at the 6 domains. And as you can see, most of the questions, I think over 90% of the questions will be coming from domain 1, which is public health, domain 2, which is a safe and rational use of medicine, domain 3, which is the supply of medicines and medical devices, and then domain 5, which is professional and personal practice. So most of the questions and general questions will be coming from those domains. But however, we're not saying that you should forego the other 2 domains. I think you'll also benefit if you also attend to those questions, but mainly the questions will be coming out of those 4 domains. Next slide, Diane. So what references can you use for the exam, especially for the general section? You can use your South African Medicines formulary, or you can use your MIMS or your MDR. I hope everybody knows what those are and what they are used for. And we also, Pharmacy Council has provided you with PDF references. They're available on the website. We have your essential medicines list, primary healthcare, pediatric, and hospital. We also have the GPP is available on the website. The SA Guide to Good Medical Practice is also available. The Pharmacy Act is also available on the website, and the Medicines Act as well. But however, we want you to use current references. So you shouldn't use old references, especially when it comes to the essential medicines list, when you have to use EMLs, the hard copies. I know some facilities have hard copies, but they are very old. They were printed in 2013, 2015. So those are quite old. So use the ones that are on the website because they're current. Next slide, dear. Okay, other references, okay, from the website, where to go to look at for those references. So you go to use your profile to access the website, and then once you see, you'll see there where it says manual. So one thing is you need to be familiar to the intern manual, because some questions they do crop up from that manual. So I'm hoping that everybody's aware and they know how to navigate through the intern manual. But like I mentioned previous slide, the other references that are available, so you also find them there. As you can see below, they are highlighted in blue. So you please download them because they will not you will not have time to go through those documents during the exams. Just try and download them and go through them. Thanks, Diane. And then we also have other references that Council has provided for you that you can go through. If you go to the website again, you'll see at your top right-hand side at the tab there that has a book, like a Bible. So you click on that and you'll find it says publications. So normally we want you to check those 2 boxes, the one that says legislation and the pharmacia. And I hope people are aware what a pharmacia is. It's that Council is producing, I think, twice a year. So sometimes we do a issue question. Diane, the next slide.
Refilwe, we did miss you, and you were explaining about the pharmacia. So if possible, if you can pick it up there.
All right.
What then pharmacia is for?
Thank you. The Pharmacia is an online journal at Pharmacy Council, and I think it's produced twice a year. So there are 2 editions in a year. So there are questions sometimes that emanate from the Pharmacia. So try and just go through them and see what you can find out. There are updates there in terms of legislation and other pharmacy practice standards. So go through them. There might be questions there. And then under legislation, Diane, if you move to the next slide. Under legislation there, you'll see you'll find the Pharmacy Act is available there. It's the first one. And then again, on the regulations, you'll see there's lots of regulations. There's some questions to come out from those regulations. The next slide. On the same, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I thought somebody was saying something. Okay. And then under rules, there's also the board notices there. So you can access those documents there. And because some questions emanate from those board notices. And you also can find your GPP is there. Your ethical rules are there. So that will help you again on domain 5 if you need some updates on domain 5. Thanks, Diane. Okay, I mentioned the board notices. So board notices are updates. They are not, some of them are not on the GPP, but they are updates. So it's best if you go through the GPP, but also look at the board notices because there are some amendments on the GPP, and you can be able to look at both the GPP and the amendment and see where the changes have been made. So don't only look at the GPP on its own, but also refer to the board notices if there's a reference to the GPP. Thanks, Diane. So how to use your reference material that you have. So you need to learn how to use the reference, each reference material that you have during the exam. So do you know where the index is? Is it in the front or at the back? Do you know what the table of contents is? Is it in the front or in the back for that reference material that you're using? For an example, if you're using the essential medicines list, at the front you will find the table of contents, and at the back you will find the names of the diseases. So that will be your index. So you need to know where to look for something because you won't have so much time to go through the document, but you need to know how to find whatever you're looking for. And you need to know also in the reference material that you're using, what information does it give you? If you're going through the Pharmacy Act or you're going through the GPP, are you going to find anything on paracetamol? So you need to find out which reference material gives you what type of information, so that you don't waste time when you're writing your exam. Tips that we provide you from Pharmacy Council is that more is not necessarily better. So what we're saying there is you can have 17 textbooks and 17 apps open during the exam. It might not help you, because then you'll be so confused. So rather start now practicing and looking at all your references. When it comes to the exam, you know that you're going to only use 2 or 3 references, then you'll have much time to go through those references. The second one is avoid a reference book that you have never used before. If you've never opened your Martindale, if you've never opened your Means Now, and during exam you want to start opening it, you're going to have some trouble because you won't know where to start, how to find the index, how to find a table of contents, or what that book provides, or what type of information. Also, if you want to use your university notes from last year, they will not help you. The reason why we're saying that, because most of the questions that are coming from this exam, they are practice questions. They're not really theoretical questions like you get from university. So, because now we're testing your application of the knowledge that you gained from university, not necessarily what you read from textbook and you have to cram that. So it's mainly it's practice based. For online references, you need to be familiar with those references. download them. Like I said earlier, the Pharmacy Council website has most of the references. We try to make things easier for you. Download those references before the exam, go through them, because it's time consuming to search during the exam for those references. And some information may not correlate to recommended reference material. Some people would want to Google some answers maybe. Remember that on Google, anybody does post answers, and it might not be what is on the recommended reference material. So the answers may be wrong because you used Google. So preferably use the reference material, then you'll get the correct answer. Thank you, Diane. So other useful online resources that you can use, we have the app. If you have never used it, you can download it and start going through it. Fortunately, with the EM guidance, you will also find the essential medicines list there. So it's a combination of many references, so it's very useful. So you can use it. You can also use the MSD manual professional version. You can also go to the SAHPRA website. You will find the GMP there. It's there. I know on the Council website, there's the to GMP, it says version 5 2010, but there's been an update. So I think now it's on version 7 2019, but it's just an amendment to the version 10 to the version 5.1. So, but go through the SAHPRA website, you'll get some reference there. Can you use a second device for your resources? Yes, you can. And can you use the apps? Like I mentioned, the EM guidance is an app. I think now the SAMF as well comes as an app, but I know you have to pay to access that one. But you can also use the hard copy as well. Thanks, Etienne. Other helpful tips with the exam. Most importantly, read the question carefully. Read the question carefully. Otherwise, if you don't read and you just skim through the question, you will miss what the question requires as an answer. And identify statements of which you are sure of. So if you're familiar with them, then you can skim through, but you can't skim through if you're not sure what the question is and if you can't identify those statements. Number 3, confirm the reference that you'll be using. I mentioned earlier that you need to know if a question asks you about aspirin, there's no way you can use the Pharmacy Act as your reference. So you need to know this reference will give me what kind of an answer for those statements. And again, if you can't complete a question, carry on, go to the next question. And when you have time towards the end of the exam, you can go back to that question. When you have time, just an emphasis on that, because if the time is up, you can't go back to that question. What we advise all the interns when they write the exams is that please, even if you're not sure what the answer is, just choose one, because there is no negative marking, just choose one. Also, when you read the questions, most of them you will see they are asking whether is this statement true, is it correct? So we will not say choose a false, an answer that is false, or when we use negative connotations when we're asking a question or we're asking you to choose the incorrect answer. Always we go for the positive answers. True, is, and correct. And again, we like to use where we ask you a question, what is the most appropriate action to take? But mostly we use most appropriate. So what you want from you there, you need to understand that part of the options that are there, maybe 2 or 3 are correct, but we want one answer that is possible, but is most inclusive. So when you look at those options, the 4 options, you'll see that, okay, 3 of them, they make sense, they might be correct. But when we're asking you choose the most appropriate one, you must choose the one that is mostly inclusive. Thank you, dear. So in terms of managing your time, I think earlier it was mentioned that the exam overall, it is for 2 days, but for general questions, it's on day 2, and it's 150 minutes. and it's 80 multiple choice questions, and each question has 4 options. So those are your 4 options for the answer. So you choose one, and so ideally then you need to spend less than 2 minutes per question. So now if you have to look at references, you will not have enough time to answer all the questions. So make sure that you study before the exams. And I mentioned earlier that there's no negative marking. Do not leave anything blank. Even if you're not sure, just choose one. You might be lucky or you might not be, but at least you chose something. But do not leave any blanks. Thanks, dear.
Thanks, Refilwe. So that actually leaves us at reviewing the questions. So I'm just going to very quickly move to that page. So we've had quite a number of responses. So thank you to everyone for responding. So far, we have had 239 responses. So let me read them out for you, Refilwe, and if you can give us feedback. So the first question, a breastfeeding mother inquires whether it is safe to use aspirin. Which of the following reference sources would assist you in determining the safety of this medicine for this patient? So majority of the interns have chosen the daily drug use. A few have chosen the British Pharmacopedia, and 1 or 2 have chosen Good Pharmacy Practice and the Pharmacy Act.
Okay, for question 1, the correct answer is the daily drug use. So it looks like most of our interns got the correct answer. And I think earlier I mentioned that you need to know which a reference gives you what type of information. The daily drug use is a book that gives you drugs and their potential drug interactions and the risks that are there in pregnancy, in porphyria, in breastfeeding, etc. Good Pharmacy Practice, I think everybody knows, it just gives you the standards on how to provide pharmaceutical services. The British Pharmacopoeia is just self-explanatory. It's just a pharmacopoeia. It's a collection of quality standards for medicines in the UK. And also Pharmacy Act, obviously, it's a legislation on the control of pharmacy practice in South Africa. So obviously the correct answer then will be daily drug use, because we are asking about safety of use of aspirin in a breastfeeding mother. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you so much. The next question, a patient presents a prescription for methotrexate for rheumatoid arthritis. Which of the following counseling points is true? A, the prescribed dose can be divided across a number of days if they experience side effects. B, take the medicine on an empty stomach 1 hour before or 2 hours after a meal. C, immediately stop taking the medication and contact the doctor if hair loss is experienced. And D, contact the doctor if exposed to someone with chickenpox or shingles. Here it seems like we have rather a mixed bag, with majority of the interns choosing option A and option B.
Yeah, it's a basket of fruits, mixed fruit salad, this one. With this one, one is you need to, if you're using the SAMF, you go to methotrexate and you check under rheumatoid arthritis what it does, and then you'll know which counseling points is true that you can give to a patient. So the first one is, let me see, Diane, because I can't see that it's very tight.
Oh, sorry. The first one is the prescribed dose can be divided across a number of days.
Yeah, so that one is incorrect because we give it once weekly, is incorrect. The second one is take the medication on an empty stomach 1 hour before or 2 hours after meals. If you go to Google, it will say this answer is correct, but if you go to the reference material, it is incorrect. So that is where I make a reference to using Google. And then the third one, it says immediately stop, take the medication and contact the doctor if hair loss is experienced. And D says contact the doctor if exposed to someone with chickenpox, shingles. As we all know that methotrexate is contraindicated in somebody who has chickenpox or shingles. So we need to contact the doctor once you have exposed to someone with chickenpox. Although methotrexate does cause hair loss in about 1 to 3% of of the population when they are on the medicine.
Thank you, Rafilwe. The next question, quality risk management supports a scientific and practical approach to decision making. Which of the following is true regarding quality risk management? A, the regulators assess and manage risk using random management tools and or procedures. And for this question, we had 34 that chose this as the correct one. The use of statistical tools to support quality risk management tools, quality risk management methods should be discouraged. 7 chose this as the correct answer. Tools for documented, transparent, and reproducible methods to accomplish the quality risk management process are used, and there were 181 that chose this, and tools in specific areas pertaining to drug substances and drug medicinal products product quality are used, and here we have 24 respondents.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane. On this one, the 181 in terms of answer, they are correct. That is the correct answer because it talks to the definition of what quality risk management is. I think the other ones you can see one. I think let's look at option 1. Regulators assess and manage risk using random risk management tools. So it talks about random risk management tools. So it's not part of the definition of quality risk management. And the using of statistical tools. That's B, also does not talk to the overall definition of quality risk management. And then option D, which is also incorrect, it talks to tools in specific areas talking about quality. So it's not really a true answer. The correct answer is option C. Thank you.
Thank you. So question 4, you receive a prescription for lenofixine XL 150 milligrams daily to be repeated monthly for 5 months. The patient requests that you dispense 75 milligram capsules instead of 150 milligram capsules. Which of the following actions is most appropriate for you to take? A, dispense 75 milligram capsules as requested by the patient. 24 interns chose this as the correct answer. B, dispense 150 milligram capsules as indicated on the prescription. 33 interns chose this as the correct answer. Consult the doctor before dispensing the medication. 194 interns chose this one. And lastly, there were 3 interns that said advise the patient to take 150 milligram capsule every second day.
Thanks, Diane. I think the interns have already passed the exams. The 194, they are correct. That is the correct option to select in this instance, because this one is more, it's a more legal question under domain 5, which is a professional and personal practice, because we are not allowed to change a doctor's prescription without their consent. The patient, yes, has a right to request for to change because obviously one would be adherence issues and other stuff, but we cannot just change it because of the patient's behest, but we have to consult a doctor before it can be changed. So option C is the correct one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is question number 5. The formulation and manufacture of an injectable solution necessitates that A, the product must not be manufactured on the same premises as oral dosage forms. There were 15 candidates here. The product must be in a sterile solution dosage form, 230. The clean areas used in manufacturing procedure need not comply with the standards of cleanliness. We had 10 that chose this as the correct one. And then lastly, the active ingredient must be optically active. And there were two interns who chose this option.
Thank you, Diane. Option B is the correct one. We're talking about injectable, so obviously they must be in a sterile solution dosage form because talking about injectables. The first one talks about manufacturing in the same plant as solid dosage forms, oral dosage forms. I mean, we have companies where they are producing injectables and tablets in the same plant, so it's not really a problem. And then with option C, yeah, it's very shocking, that one, because it says need not, maybe they did not read properly, need not comply to standards of cleanliness. injectable and cleanliness, they go together. So yeah, that one is incorrect. And then the fourth one, option D, is also incorrect because it says they must just be optically active. We do have injectables that are optically active, but not necessarily a measure requirement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the last question, a 24-week pregnant hospitalized patient develops an unknown infection. Which antibiotic is suitable as empiric treatment? A, trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole, 57, piperacillin-tazobactam, 83, clindamycin, 106, and kanamycin, 10.
Thank you, Diane. This question comes to, it's in response to when we say read the question carefully. So one, what do you find? That you find a 24-week pregnant person. And number two, unknown infection. Number three, empiric treatment. So those are your three guides in terms of answering this question. Number one, the first item, which is, okay, just say Bactrim, but it's not Bactrim, trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. One, you need to know whether there's a sulfonamide there, and it's contraindicated in the third trimester on pregnant women. So we cannot use number one. So number A is wrong. Question C, which is clindamycin. Clindamycin, it can be used in pregnancy. However, it is reserved for severe infection. And in this question, we are saying unknown infection. So we can't even say it's a severe infection. So that's your guide. And option D is kanamycin, which is an aminoglycoside. That one is also it crosses the placenta, so it has toxic effects in pregnancy. So the correct answer is option B, with piperacillin and tazobactam. Normally in public sector and hospital, we always say when you're treating an unknown infection and your empiric treatment, which is your first line treatment that you give, because you don't know you haven't done your cultures, your bacterial culture, so you don't even know what caused the infection. So what you need to do there, you start with the most basic antibiotic. Basic is not the correct word, but it's the most basic one in terms of, because we define it, do we have an AK-47 or using a knife in this fight? So we're using a knife. So we start with the basic, which is your penicillins. That is why option B is the correct one. We don't go with the AK-47s when we're treating an unknown infection. Thank you, Diane. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
It does. Thank you so much. So now we're going to switch back to the presentation, and we're just going to have a look more at the examination experience as well as the format of the exam. I just want to check before we proceed if there's any questions at this point in time. So if interns have any questions, if they can please type them in the chat. You can also type your questions on Facebook and YouTube.
Thanks, Diane. We do have a couple of questions. The first one, so the calculation section will be written on a different day from the general long questions, or will all questions be written on the same day?
Okay, so we will be going through this a little bit later in the presentation, so I'll wait until that slide comes up.
All right, and then just to confirm, we would only need to choose one answer for each MCQ. It's not a case about choosing multiple correct or most correct answers.
Okay, so as Ms. Mogali had said, you may be asked in a question, what is the most appropriate option? But there will only ever be one correct option for each of the questions. So although we use the word most correct, you are only able to select one. So it's either A, B, C, or D. You may never choose more than one. Okay, so I don't see any more questions coming through at this stage. We will be stopping at the end of the presentation to take some more questions. So let's wait until the end to answer the remaining questions. Let's have a look at the pre-registration examinations, and this is where I'm going to answer the first question that we came across. So we have got 3 examinations per year. One is written in March, one in August, and one October. Before you're allowed to write the pre-registration examination, you need to complete the practice examination. And the practice examination is there so that you get used to the exam conditions as well as the content that is being examined. You have the opportunity to use your resources and see what it's like in terms of the invigilation software and everything. So we really try and use it as a way that you can actually work out how the examination day is going to be. So the next practice examination will be on the 1st of June. This is a Thursday. And then the last one for the year will be on the 17th of August. On the 1st of June, everyone that is writing on the 1st and 2nd of August, even those that have written the practice examination before, will be expected to write the practice examination on the 1st of June. And this is because we'll be implementing new invigilation software for this upcoming exam. So you all need to log on to experience this. The practice examination, both parts of the examination are on the same day. So we do realize that a lot of you need to take leave from work in order to write these examinations. And therefore, so that we don't take too much of your leave, we wanted to write both sections on the first day. So only for the practice exam, you'll start with a calculation section at 9 o'clock. You'll finish with the calculation section at 11. You will then start with the general section at 11:30, and the exam will end at 2. So that's the only time where you're going to be writing both sections on the same day. On the actual day of the examination, it will be written over 2 days. So the first opportunity that you have to write this year is on the 1st and 2nd of August. And this is a Tuesday and a Wednesday. On the 1st of August, you will be writing the calculation section. This is from 9 until 11. And then on the 2nd of August, you'll write the general questions, and this will be from 9 until 11:30. The same times would apply to 24-25 October, which is also a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So the practice examination may be written at any time, and there's no entrance criteria that apply. It is compulsory for everyone who is writing the examination in August this year to participate in the practice exam in June. Okay, so I'm sure you are aware that Pharmacy Council sends you quite a lot of information. Everything that is happening and everything that you need to be aware of is always sent out by Pharmacy Council. So it's very important that Pharmacy Council has your up-to-date details. And this means that you need to ensure that Pharmacy Council has your cell phone number, an email address, and for the purposes of the examination, that we have an up-to-date profile picture. Remember that if you change your email or cell phone number, you will not get any communication from Council. So I really do expect that everyone tonight would go onto the SAPC website and just make sure that your email address and cell phone number is correct. The dates that you need to be aware of, and these apply to the actual examination, so this applies to the August and October dates. Bookings open always 6 weeks before the exam. So if we take the example of the 1st and 2nd of August, it means that bookings are going to open in the middle of June. Bookings then close 4 weeks before the exam, so that will be at the end of June. And then there's a late booking period, which is a late booking period for the next 14 days. So that will take us until the middle of July. After the middle of July, you will no longer be allowed to book for the pre-registration examination. Bookings close 14 days before the exam to allow us to prepare for the examination day. So please note that you have 2 weeks to book, and you won't be charged a late booking fee. If you do not book within that time, or you cannot book within that time, then you have another 2 weeks that follow that you are then able to book. Okay, so in terms of finding the practice examination and finding the exams, all the information is available on the website, and we do encourage you to visit the SAPC website. You would then go onto the landing page, and on the landing page you would click on registered persons. Under registered persons you click on pharmacist intern, and under pharmacist interns you'd look at the ruler at the right at the top of the page, and you would move towards pre-registration examinations. We always paste a link for for the pre-registration practice examination on this page, and you will use this link to then access our examination platform. You can also access the examination platform by logging onto your profile. All the information that we have and sample papers are available either on the website or on the secure site of the platform. So log into that. There isn't much available in terms of past paper questions. So everything that we have for you would be available there. Please also make sure that you are looking at an up-to-date version of the Intern Tutor Manual and that you're aware of any changes. In terms of your profile picture, I mentioned that it is critical that Pharmacy Council has your latest profile picture, and this means that we need a color image taken in the last 6 months of your head and shoulders. If any of your features have changed within the last couple of months, such as you've cut your hair or you've grown a beard or something else, and we need you to update your picture, please make sure that you do so that the invigilator is able to use this image during the examination to confirm that the person sitting for the examination is the same as the person in terms of their profile picture. It doesn't have to be a fancy picture, and try to take it against a background that is rather plain so that we'll be able to see your features. So try to use the wall of your house or something like that, and we'll be able to see it clearly then. As mentioned, the profile picture is used by the invigilator, to verify the identity of the candidates. So how do you update your profile picture? Firstly, you would go onto your profile. You would then go onto right at the top right-hand corner. You see there's a little turquoise down arrow. Click on that, and that page pops up. You then have the ability to change some of your information. So over here, you would not be able to change, for example, your P number, your role, your first name, your second name, etc. But you are able to update your profile picture. So over here, you'd be able to choose a file, and then you'd be able to select a file, and then automatically it would update. If it doesn't update on your side, then it hasn't changed on our side. So just make sure that you have updated this profile picture within at least the last 6 months. Okay, so let's have a look at who is eligible to write the examination. So there are 2 broad categories that you would fit into. We talk about the 6-month category and the 9-month category. Interns are not allowed to write the pre-registration examination until they have completed, and completed needs to be underlined here, their 5 months of training. So their 5 months have need to be completed. At the date of the examination, they need to be in their 6th month. You need to have submitted 6 CPDs and be competent in 3. You need to have completed the practice exam, and your tutor must have submitted 3 progress reports. This is different from interns who are now in their 9th month. And this means that you are in your 9th month or more, which means that you must have completed a minimum of 8 months. You need to then have submitted and be competent in 6 CPDs. You need to complete the practice examination, and your tutor must have submitted 4 progress reports. Please note that the entrance criteria will not be changed in 2023. So interns often are waiting for us to change the criteria, for example, that you would not have to be competent in as many CPDs, etc., or we change the dates, etc. Nothing is going to change for this upcoming examination. So please be aware of it and work towards preparing for it. A big obstacle for you may be your CPD entries in terms of the submission and getting feedback. So this year it has changed that we have submission dates and release dates on a monthly basis. The next submission date is the 2nd of June, and if you submit by the 2nd of June, you will then get feedback by the 23rd of June. If you submit by the 28th of June 2023, you will only get feedback on the 21st of July 2023. And this means that if you need to be competent or you have outstanding entries that you need to be competent in, you will not get feedback if you submit them on the 28th of June, as results will only be released on the 21st of July. So you are now working, so please make sure that everyone is working extra hard to the submission on the 2nd of June, where you would get feedback by the 23rd of June, and this is still in the regular booking period, which means that you won't be charged a late booking fee. So please make sure that you are aware of these dates. So I'm sure you are aware that the upcoming examination is going to be a remote examination. And when you book for the examination, remember, if you don't book for the exam, you won't be writing the exam. You will be able to select if you will be writing at your residence, workplace, or at the South African Pharmacy Council offices. You need to confirm this venue once again when booking for the exam. When you write a remote exam, I'm sure you are aware, as I know that a lot of you have had remote exams when you were doing your BPharm degree, you really need to prepare and make sure that you have everything that you need around you. So you need to start asking the questions now. Which device will I need? How will I communicate with the South African Pharmacy Council? What do I need during the exam? Furthermore, you should be asking yourself, what happens if there's load shedding? What happens if there's a loss in electricity? What happens if the cell phone tower goes down, etc.? Because these are very relevant questions that you are going to have to face to ensure that you have made a backup plan for everything. Okay, so for the remote examination, you really need to find a place that is nice and quiet, and you need enough space for all of your reference material, for paper to write on if you're one of those that likes to jot down ideas that you might have, or for the or for the calculation section, you would need to write down your steps that you are doing. So please make sure that you find this quiet working space. We do suggest, although you are able to use electronic references and you are able to use the websites that we permit during the examination, we do, however, recommend that you download electronic references beforehand. One is that it takes less time, and then you'd be able to get to use these electronic these electronic references beforehand to practice for the exam. I know that this has already been mentioned, but please ensure you have the right equipment with you, paper, calculator, etc. In terms of device and connectivity, so our suggested devices is that you'd use a laptop or a desktop. And this year, you also need to have a mobile cell phone, okay? But your cell phone this year is not going to be used as a device that you can use as for references, but your mobile phone this year is going to be used for the invigilation software. So you need to all have two devices. You need to have a laptop and a cell phone, or a desktop and a cell phone. Both of your devices need to have a functioning camera. You need to ensure that you have got connectivity, and we recommend a minimum of 3G. And you also need to use one of these browsers, Chrome, Firefox, or Edge. But please, please, please let Chrome be your first choice in terms of your browser. So we now need to work towards this. So you need to ensure that you have got these devices. Remember, if you don't have access to these devices, or you're worried about your connectivity, you're welcome to write the examination at the Pharmacy Council offices in Arcadia. Okay, just 1 second. Sorry, I'm having load shedding, so I just need to. Okay, so in terms of where you find the examination, we had already mentioned this, that on the day of the examination, there will be a link that will be posted on the Pharmacy Council website. You would click on the link and it will take you straight to the examination. You would only be able to, although everyone can see the link, you would only be able to enter into the exam if you have booked for the exam. So that's an important part, is that you would only be able to book for the exam, enter into the exam if you have booked for the exam. So please keep that in mind. Okay, if you have load shedding or loss in electricity, we need to say upfront that you will not be given any extra time. So that's the first thing that you need to keep in mind. And at the moment, we are in stage 6 load shedding. We do not know what is to come in the next couple of months. So you need to be fully aware of your load shedding schedule and make sure that you are making arrangements accordingly. So, having said this, it doesn't help to panic in the exam, so please keep calm. Check your load shedding schedules ahead of time and make an alternate plan. Make sure that your laptop is fully charged before the exam, that you have an alternate Wi-Fi connection. So for example, if you're using a fiber connection, you would then maybe be able to hotspot your phone, etc. If you're unable to find an alternate Wi-Fi connection, or if you need to be connected to a power supply, please make sure you find an alternate venue, and you can notify us via the WhatsApp number. If load shedding happens in the exam, please note that all your work will be saved. Keep in mind that you will not be given extra time though. Okay, so if you lose connection, maybe there's a drop in signal, please don't worry about this either. So if you have a drop in signal and it comes back on, or you're able to connect via your cell phone, don't worry. So in terms of connecting via your cell phone, I mean that you'll be able to hotspot your phone. Please make sure that you keep calm, that you check your connection, that you log onto the SAPC website and then enter onto the exam platform again. A new OTP will be sent to your cell phone, and all questions that you have answered will be saved, and you would only have access to answer questions that are unanswered. Okay, so this is day 1 and day 2 of the exam. So this is what we're now talking about is the 1st and 2nd of August. So on the 1st of August, you would be writing you'd be logging on between 8 and 9. And this is just to ensure that you can access the site, that you received your OTP, that you've logged onto the invigilation software, etc. So make sure that you aren't logging on at 9 o'clock, otherwise you're going to lose time. At 9 o'clock, the examination begins, and the remote invigilator starts the examination for everyone at the same time. During the examination, there will be a continuous video feed, and images will be taken throughout the exam. So please note this. The examination would then end at 11. And on the 1st, this means that once the examination is finished, you can take some time out and then start preparing for the general section of the exam. So day 2 looks very much the same as day 1, except the exam is going to end at 11:30. And once the exam ends on at 11:30, it would take you to the post-examination survey. And we request that you complete the post-examination survey so that we have an idea of how you experienced the exam. So this would be different on the practice exam, remember, because you'll write both sections after one another. Okay, where you sit is very important. So as mentioned, there's going to be a continuous video between you and your invigilator, and your cell phone is going to be used for the invigilation software as well. So please make sure that there is sufficient light. And what this means is that if you are sitting next to a door or a window, that the lighting may be a problem. So you would then, in those circumstances, have to close the curtains so that we can see you. It's important that you test the lighting beforehand. So for example, if you take a selfie of yourself, but this is also why we're having the practice examination, so that you're able to then test the same conditions in the practice exam as what you would be having in the real exam. So practice where you're actually going to be taking the exam on the venue, etc. It's not imperative, but we do suggest that you would keep everything the same between the 2 days. Ensure that the camera on your device and cell phone are working. If you tell us that your camera isn't working on the day of the exam, unfortunately you will be removed from the exam and you'd have to rewrite at the next sitting. Lastly, dress appropriately. So videos and images taken form part of your permanent record. So this means that, and by dress appropriately, we don't mean that you have to get dressed up for the examination. You're welcome to be casually dressed. However, we do expect you to be dressed in clothes, and that you are out of your pajamas, and that you do have clothes on when you take this examination. If the invigilator cannot see you, they will communicate this to you via the chat function. So if they haven't contacted you, please continue as normal. If there's a problem, they will communicate with you. Okay, so I'm going to run through just a bit of a demonstration video so that you can see what it would be like logging onto the system. So this is the SAPC website, and this is where you would go to the pre-registration examination. You would click here to log on to the exam. Once you click here, it then takes you to the examination platform where you would enter in your user number, your ID number, and your password. After you enter in this information, it would then send a message for you to receive your OTP. Your OTP, so the OTP is unique for every person, and it's also unique to each time you log onto the site. So it's very important that you wait patiently. If you press resend OTP, it will generate a new password and a new password. You will then get sent all the passwords at the same time, and you won't know which password to enter. So this is in real time, and as you can see, it takes a little while for me to receive my OTP. I eventually actually moved to my email where I find an email that I have received with the OTP on it. So that's why we need to make sure that we have got your updated email address and cell phone number. So over here, I go to my email, I quickly copy the OTP, and I enter the OTP into the block. I then click on each one of these statements because in clicking on each one of these statements, I'm agreeing to the examination code of conduct. As I click, you can see the green blocks appear, and then I press continue. If you do not tick these blocks, you will not be able to enter into the examination. Then the next page is the information about the exam, the examiners, as well as the instructions. So take the time to read through this, and then you can click Start the Exam. Please note that unless the examination has been opened, you won't be able to move past this page. So it's important that you remain on this page until the exam has started. Okay, so please be patient, and you can't press Start the Exam. You won't have any earlier access than anyone else. So please wait patiently on this page until we start the exam. Okay, so then moving to the next slide, I now go through a question. So this is a question, this is question number 9, and there are a few things that I just want to highlight on this page. There's a time that is reflected at the top here. Then there's a button over here that you can press for references, and there's the chat function. So it's quite easy to navigate. If you'd like to open one of the references online, you can click on references. You would be able to chat with the invigilator if you're experiencing a problem. If I click go next question, it would automatically take me to the next question. I should enter in here an answer. If I don't know the answer, I can proceed. And if I proceed without answering, this question appears at the end of the paper. So let's have a look. Okay, so I open up some of my references. As you can see, it opens up pretty quickly, but as I say, it depends on your internet speed. You then would be able to open up the chat. You can type a message. If your invigilator is chatting with you, a message will pop up in that block. You would then be able to use your mouse to select the correct answer, being A, B, C, or D. And then when you are ready, you can click on next question. I just want to stop at this point because it's quite important that you understand that if you've answered B, you won't be able to remove this marking. You can only change it to A, C, or D, but once you have clicked on one of these answers, you need to answer the question. And it would then move you to the next question. So you can't untick anything. You are able to move the correct answer to A, C, or D, but as soon as you've clicked on one of those answers, you would need to answer it before proceeding to the next question. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so these are just a few snapshots, just so that you are aware of it, the same information we have just been through, the login screen, the OTP, the declaration that you are signing, as well as the start of the exam. You would then have each question. Each question contains a stem, 4 options. There's 1 correct option per question. You select the correct answer. if you do not know the answer, you can skip the question and you would then see that question that you didn't answer at the end of the paper. The examination, the post-examination declaration, there are 2 statements that you need to click on. And then you go to the post-examination survey. So the post-examination survey, you would only see that after the general section of the exam. Okay, so prior to the start of the examination, you will be expected to complete the examination code of conduct or the declaration. And this is important because each one of these statements has meaning. And if you click on the statement, you are agreeing to it. So the first one says that you are completing the examination in a suitable area with minimal anticipated distractions. The next one is regarding your location. That is the one that is stipulated in your booking confirmation. Remember, if there is a problem and you need to change your venue in terms of your connection, etc., please contact Pharmacy Council on their WhatsApp line. You also need to make sure that you've got the correct amount of data, and this would be 3 gigabytes per paper. You also need to confirm that you're not sitting next to you or in close proximity to another pharmacist intern completing the exam. I will also not receive any form of assistance, so you're not letting anyone help you. This includes anyone in your household who's helping you to log onto the site. So please make sure that there is no one that is in the camera at the same time as you. You also may not communicate verbal, electronic, or in person with any pharmacist intern, pharmacist tutor, or registered person during the exam. That you'll only use the reference materials permitted, and these were the reference materials that Ms. Mogale went over in her section of the presentation. That you will not access any other reference material that has been prohibited. That you will not give any assistance to anyone completing the exam. That you will not share or retain the content of the exam via electronic, printed, written, or verbal means with any person, and that you will contact and inform Pharmacy Council if you're aware of any pharmacist interns who have contravened the examination code of conduct. So this is a binding contract between you and Pharmacy Council, and if you do not obey the examination code of conduct, we had a few cases last year, you will appear before the Committee of Preliminary Inquiry, and then they would then take the matter further to either CII or CFI. There were a few interns last year who appeared before CFI, and remember, the major problem with appearing before CFI is that your name is then published in the annual report. So it's quite important that you make sure that you are going to adhere to the examination code of conduct and that you're adhering to the practice rules, and that you make sure that if you're aware of anyone else who's not adhering to the rules, that you're going to contact Pharmacy Council. So just to go through it, 1 question per page. Questions are randomized, which means my number 1 and your number 1 are not going to be the same. It is a timed examination, which means that you have a set time to complete a number of questions. So it will be 40 calculation questions or 80 general section questions. Please note that there will be no extra time. You cannot revisit any questions that have already been answered, and you can only revisit unanswered questions at the end of the exam. And this is very important. Here's an example of a question. You have a STEM, you've got 4 options, and you need to make sure that you are selecting one answer, and then either you select the correct answer and proceed, or you don't answer anything and proceed, and will have the opportunity to come back to that question at the end. How do you submit your examination? Well, you don't have to worry too much because the examination, each time that you are clicking on an answer, your answer is saved. So you don't have to worry. Each time that you click on an answer and proceed through the exam, it is saving that answer. So if at any time you lose connection, you don't have to stress. Everything that you have answered is going to be saved. Each answer is time-stamped and recorded. And as mentioned, you would only be able to revisit unanswered questions. Okay, so that is quite important. I do want to bring your attention to the fact that if you have a loss in connection or you need to change devices, When you log back onto the website, the questions will re-randomize, and because they re-randomize, they will renumber. You don't have to worry about that. I promise you, everything that you have answered is saved as you proceed. So don't stress. Okay, right at the end, you are going to declare you are going to agree to the following two statements. I confirm that I have completed the examination without assistance from any person and adhere to the examination code of conduct. This is very important. If you are found to have contravened the examination code of conduct, Pharmacy Council will implement disciplinary action against me in terms of Chapter 5 of the Pharmacy Act. And we do know that Pharmacy Council takes this very seriously, and the penalties going forward, I think, are going to be rather high in terms of the penalties. I will not and have not shared or retained any of the content of the examination via electronic, printed, written, and verbal means. And this means that you may not take any photos, any screen grabs of the content of the examination. Remember that we have a video stream of everything that you have done during the examination. So we know what you have saved, and we will know if you've taken any photos. So please make sure that you do not retain any copies. This also means that you cannot go from the examination and tell another person what was in the examination. We take this very, very seriously and expect that you will adhere to the code of conduct. The examination results will only be released about a month after the examination is written. Although these are electronic exams, we ensure that the marks that are released are 100% correct. So each of the examinations is remarked, and then we check what the system marked against the verified mark to make sure that everything has been marked correctly. We also go through each one of the questions and review the results per question. This does take time though, so please, there will be a delay in the release of results. Well, not a delay, but there will be a while before the results are released. And as soon as the results are released, you will be notified via SMS, and the results will be available online. You have the opportunity to appeal your examination results, and this may be submitted to the registrar within 30 days of the examination results being released. Okay, please note that this is different from a review of the examination. So a review of the examination would mean that you are asking Pharmacy Council if you may review your answers, and Pharmacy Council would then tell you what the correct answer was. And this is done in a formative manner to show you where you went wrong so that you can make those changes before you write again. A review is not a remark, so your examination will not be remarked. I did explain that a remark is not necessary, as all the question papers are marked twice, and we check that the results are corresponding between the two marking platforms. So please rest assured that your mark is correct. If you're unsuccessful in the examination, you will have to rewrite the examination, and it is compulsory to rewrite both sections of the exam. The exam consists of 120 questions, not calculations in general, but 120 questions. That is divided into two sections. So it's one exam. Therefore, if you fail general, you will have to rewrite both general and calculations, and vice versa. If you are rewriting the examination, you need to submit and be competent in 6 CPDs. You need to have completed the practice exam, and your tutor needed to submit the relevant progress reports relative to the intern's date of registration. Okay, so we just want to recap in terms of the overall evaluation of your internship. We've been dealing a lot tonight with the pre-registration examination. We touched on CPDs as well as progress reports. And all of this needs to be completed within 365 days of supervised practice. Please note that 365 days is a minimum and not a maximum. In terms of the examination, we've gone through quite a bit of information, so I don't think we need to repeat anything here. In terms of your CPDs, there is one outcome one entry per domain. Okay, these are assessed on a monthly basis and released on a monthly basis. Please make sure that you don't wait for the submission date, but that you would submit as soon as you are ready. And proof of competence means that you need to be competent in 6 CPD entries. With respect to the progress reports, institutional and community service pharmacists and community interns, they will need to submit 7 progress reports. In manufacturing, it's 9 progress reports plus a declaration of 400 hours. Academia needs to submit 3 progress reports, declaration of 400 hours, and they also need to upload the achievement of their master's qualification. I just want to spend 1 minute on this. The achievement of a master's qualification means that your thesis has been marked, you have done the corrections, and it has been accepted, and the university confirms that the degree will be conferred upon you, or you would have your graduation certificate to show us that you have graduated. So it's either documentary evidence from the university that you have obtained your qualification and that you are awaiting graduation, or your graduation certificate. And please note that academic interns can upload their protocol as well as the achievement of their master's qualification on their profile, and it will generate a case number, and it will then go through the process at Pharmacy Council in terms of being accepted. But the onus is on the interns to upload these documents, the progress report, the protocol, as well as the achievement of their master's qualification. All other progress reports are uploaded by your tutor, and proof of competence is favorable reports from your tutor. What we often face with is queries regarding interns who would like to change internship placements. And interns often are seeking greener pastures on the other side, and they are thinking about moving for more pay or thinking about moving for better hours. And we would really like to guard against this. Remember that the pharmacy has invested in you and your internship. You have taken an internship position then that could have possibly have been filled by another person. So you really need to keep this in mind. You should also think about your future, because you really have to think whether someone would whether the company that you are leaving would hire you back one day or give you a position if you had walked out on them during your internship. So we know that there are circumstances where there are real problems that lead to interns needing to change their facilities. If you are relocating, if there's a problem at your current internship placement, there are real problems that necessitate a cessation of contract. But we also know that a few interns like to change in the middle of the year because better opportunities come their way. And we would really like you to consider, is this professional and ethical behavior? In terms of locuming as a post-basic pharmacist assistant, Pharmacy Council often receives queries regarding locuming and for the scope of practice of a pharmacist. Remember that a pharmacist intern has the scope of practice of a pharmacist for when they are completing their practical training. Otherwise, they have a scope of practice of a pharmacist assistant post-basic. So practical training means the site that you are completing your 365 days at under the supervision of your tutor. In that scenario, you are a pharmacist working under direct supervision. You have the scope of practice of a pharmacist working under direct supervision of a pharmacist. A pharmacist intern would have the scope of practice of a post-basic pharmacist assistant if they were locuming. So if you're working at another facility, then you may only perform the tasks within the scope of practice of a post-basic pharmacist assistant. Please always keep in mind that as a pharmacist intern, regardless, you need to work under the direct supervision of a pharmacist. Interns, unfortunately, cannot be provided with certificates stating they are registered as post-basic pharmacist assistants for locuming. Remember that you are currently in the register of interns. You cannot be moved to the register of post-basic assistants, and you cannot get a certificate that says that you're a post-basic assistant because you're registered as an intern. So it's unfortunate that you are unable to get additional certificates. You have one scope of practice, and you can refer the your employer to the Pharmacy Council website, because all of this information is available there, and is also available in the regulations. In terms of academic pharmacists and completing of their 400 hours, academic pharmacists, academic interns have the same scope of practice as all other interns. So they then, if they're completing their 400 hours, they then have the scope of practice of a pharmacist working under the direct personal supervision of a pharmacist in a pharmacy. If they are locuming, if they're working after hours or weekends, in this circumstance, they will have the scope of practice of a pharmacist as a post-basic pharmacist assistant working under the direct supervision of a pharmacist. Once again, refer to the regulations, as this is written in the regulations as such. Remember that that the 400 hours, we do not say that it has to be remunerated. It can be remunerated, but there's no stipulation of pay for these 400 hours that you would have to work at a community or hospital pharmacy. I know that you're thinking about your community service year next year, and all information regarding CSP can be found under Pharmacist tab. Remember that a community service pharmacist has the scope of practice as a pharmacist at a site approved by the Department of Health. Therefore, placements of CSPs are done by the Department of Health. Once you have been placed by the Department of Health, you will then be able to register with Pharmacy Council. So there are a few things that need to happen. Firstly, you need to meet the criteria for release. Once you're released from Pharmacy Council, you will be able to, you then will be, your position would be confirmed by NDOH. They normally tell you it's normally towards the end of the year when they tell you that applications have opened. You would then be able to apply, but you would only be able to then commence work and register once you have met all the criteria. And then once you have registered with Pharmacy Council will send you a certificate. Okay, so once a year we have a CSP workshop, and this is held in October. So we look forward to seeing you at the CSP workshop in October. I'm sure there are quite a few questions, so over to you, Natalie.
Thanks, Jan. The first question, if one had written a practice exam before, is it compulsory to write it again?
Yes, it is compulsory to write it again. As mentioned, there is new invigilation software where you would need to use a device, either a laptop or a desktop, and your phone is going to be used for the invigilation. Pharmacy Council is going to issue a guideline in terms of what to expect, but the practice exam would allow you to experience this remote proctoring or the remote invigilation. So it is essential that everybody writes that practice exam coming up so that you're aware of the invigilation requirements.
Good evening. There is some confusion amongst interns about the number of CPDs to be submitted in order to register for the August pre-registration exam. Must all 6 CPDs be submitted by the 1st of June or before you write in August?
So they need to be submitted before you book for the exam. So it doesn't have to be submitted by the 1st of June. It has to be submitted at the time of booking for the exam. So at the time of booking for the exam, interns need to have submitted 6 and passed 3.
Good evening. Are we writing the pre-registration exam in an actual venue or online?
It has been written online with remote invigilation. There is software that you are going to need to connect to. If you are worried about connecting on the day of the examination, we suggest that you write at the offices in Arcadia. So you have the opportunity to write in Pretoria, and if you're worried about load shedding, etc., you're welcome to come and write in the offices in Pretoria, but it is a remote examination.
In our intern manual, it says we can still submit CPDs before 28 June with a late exam booking fee, but those CPD results only get released 21st of July, and this is after the time allowed for late booking.
Okay, so the late booking fee is for interns who meet the criteria within those 2 weeks of late booking. So at the current time, if you have a look at the dates in terms of the opening and closing and the CPD dates, if you submit, let's just move to the date so that we get it correct. So if you submit by the 2nd of June, your results will be released on the 23rd of June. If you submit on the 28th of June, your results will only be available on the 21st of July. And the 21st of July falls outside of the booking, even the late booking. So even if you would like to have a late booking and you need to be competent in a certain number of CPDs, you will not be able to book because the 21st of July falls within those 2 weeks prior to the examination and all bookings are closed, including late bookings.
Can I write both practice exams even though I intend to write the exam in October?
Yes, that is not a problem. You are welcome to write the practice exam in June. It is not dependent on any criteria. Therefore, you do not need to have worked for a minimum number of days, and you do not have to have submitted any of your CPDs or be competent in any of your CPDs. So you're welcome to write it whenever.
During the exam, can I go back to a previously answered question, or I cannot go back once I have answered an MCQ?
Anything that is answered cannot be revisited. You can only revisit unanswered questions, and those unanswered questions automatically appear at the end of the examination. So as you go, next question, next question, next question, once you've completed all the questions, the unanswered questions would then appear as you say next question. So they would just appear one at a time and take you through the unanswered questions.
Do the months criteria also count for academic interns?
Kamo, if you can just confirm the month criteria, the CPD criteria does apply for academic interns. So they do need to have met those number of CPDs. Kutsuko, are you able to confirm that?
So,
Yeah.
So in terms of the months as well, the academic interns, they need to adhere to the months as well in terms of them being in their 6th month or 9th month in terms of the CPD criteria. The only thing that doesn't apply to the academic interns, it's the requirements for the progress reports.
Good evening. How much is the late booking fee?
Thank you so much. The late booking fee, Kutsuko, is at 1194. I do have it. Sorry, let me just. I do have it on a slide. One moment.
I think it's 115. But we can just confirm.
Hi, Diane. It's 1,227.
1,227.
Yes.
If I've been competent in at least 3 CPDs but have not submitted 6 CPDs, can I submit the remaining CPDs before 4 weeks, like the day before booking?
Okay, so there is something that you need to know about submitting things very close to the booking day. So the system takes about a day to upload. So once you have submitted, it doesn't automatically talk to the exam site. So I wouldn't suggest waiting until the day before to submit those last 3 CPDs. Wait a few days before to try and submit them, please, or submit them as soon as you are ready. You don't have to wait to submit all 3 at the same time, but you can submit one at a time. So please don't wait until the last minute. And also to avoid paying that late booking fee, please make sure that you are going to book within the first 2 weeks of bookings opening.
If we booked our location as home, but we have to write the test at work due to load shedding, will that be okay?
It will be okay. Please notify the SAPC on their WhatsApp number to inform them if you are changing venue. If you do know a couple of days before the exam, you can also send an email to Pharmacy Council.
If we aren't competent enough by the 21st of June and fix them in time to submit before 28 June, would we still be able to write the exam then as stated in the intern manual, or would it be too late?
So if you haven't met the CPD criteria, i.e. you haven't submitted 6 CPDs, or 3 of those CPDs are not yet, or more than 3 of those CPDs are not yet competent, you unfortunately will not be able to write this examination. So if you do not meet those criteria at the time of booking for the exam, you won't be able to write.
We work in a rural area with no network, so do we choose writing at home if maybe we have to go to the cafeteria?
So I would guard against doing the examination in the cafeterias. I'd just be worried that it's going to be quite distracting. So I would think that perhaps you need to consider very carefully about where you're writing the examination, and always bear in mind that you can go to the office in Pretoria to write it if you're worried about load shedding.
If our cell phone is being used for invigilation, are we still allowed to use reference apps like EM Guidance?
No, you are allowed to use EM Guidance on your laptop or your desktop, but you will not be able to access any apps on your cell phone. Your cell phone is going to be used for invigilation only, and you will not be able to use your cell phone.
Will our answers be saved if load shedding does affect us?
Yes, it will. As long as you are connected, the system records your answers as you proceed. You will not be able to proceed through the exam if you don't have a connection. So as soon as your connection goes down, everything that you have done at that point in time is saved. You don't have to worry. Each time you answer a question, the system saves it and it timestamps it. So you don't have to worry. If you are affected by load shedding, everything is going to be saved. You just have to worry about reconnecting.
Will I be allowed to finish the exam once the power is back?
No, you will not. So that is considered giving you extra time. So everyone will start and end the examination at the same time. The examination will not be extended if you are experiencing load shedding. And that's why we do say that if you are aware that you are going to be experiencing load shedding, go to another venue.
Is a medical dictionary accepted as a reference?
Yes, you're welcome to use that.
Can I write at Starbucks as they have good Wi-Fi connection?
So the invigilation in Starbucks is going to be quite a problem in terms of, also there's going to be the background in terms of people that are going to be coming in and out of your screen. You also need to have a second device that is going to be placed on another surface so that we get a side view of you. And I don't think that that is going to be conducive in terms of writing the examination. So I would think carefully if you want to consider writing at Starbucks.
How can I change my venue from home to work? Or am I allowed to write the exam at work even if I chose home as the venue?
All you need to do is contact Pharmacy Council a couple of days before the exam, or even if it's on the day of the exam. If it's earlier, you can send an email. If it's on the day of the examination, you can contact us via WhatsApp.
Are we allowed to use electronic versions of the reference materials?
Yes, you may. So you may use PDF copies that you have downloaded. You may use websites, the websites that we have mentioned. You would be able to access EM guidance on your laptop. So you will be able to access electronic resources. We, however, do say that we suggest that you download as much as you can, as it just will use less bandwidth and take less time than doing it during the exam.
Can we print out the references we'll be using?
You're more than welcome to print them out, but it's probably going to amount to quite a bit of paper.
Is it okay to use 2 computers or laptops just to have one device for ease to refer to our references?
No, you will only be allowed to use one device. So one device to take the exam, being a desktop or a laptop, and your second device, which is your cell phone, is used for invigilation. You may not use a second screen, and you may not use a second laptop or desktop.
If you're writing at the SAPC office, will a laptop be provided?
Yes, it will be provided. You will be connected. You will not be affected by load shedding. We have backup generation.
If started internship late, like in May, will we be accommodated to write beyond October 2023?
Okay, so after October 2023, the next examination will be held in March 2024. So every year there are 3 examinations held, one in March, one at the end of July, beginning of August, and then the last one in October. So there are only those 3 exams that are held annually.
Thank you for all the information. Are we allowed to have multiple tabs open during the exam on your one device, or switch between screens from the online exam to, for example, a resource saved on your desktop? Will there be an invigilator during the practice exam as well? Thank you.
So let's start with the multiple tabs. Yes, you can have multiple tabs open, and yes, you are allowed to use PDF copies that you have downloaded. So you may open up a PDF copy or a Word document, etc. So that is fine. In terms of the practice examination is going to be exactly the same as the real examination. So in terms of invigilation, we'll have invigilators, the software will be up and running, the conditions are going to be mimicked exactly. So that's why it's a good opportunity for you to get used to those exam conditions as well as the invigilation software in case you are worried about what may happen on the day of the exam. So don't panic, you'll be able to experience this in the practice exam in June.
Is it still possible to change tutors now, or will that affect my registration date with council?
So in terms of changing of tutors, I'm going to hand this one over to the office in case there's any information that has come out lately. So if Kutsuko or Kamo could take the question.
Thanks, Diane. So remember, with regards to the session of contract, so that's with regards to the changing of tutors, you'll have to apply for a session of contract. And for your practical training days not to be affected, you need to apply 7 days prior to you starting with the new tutor. However, if you apply later than that, after you have seeded your contract with your current tutor, then that will affect your practical training days. So the later you apply, then we would consider the days that you've lost and deduct those from your practical training days.
When registering as a CSP, does one need to have his or her degree certificate, considering that some people are still paying university fees and may not be finished by December 2023?
Kamo, are you able to answer this one too?
Yes. It is preferred that you have your registration certificate, your completion of degree certificate. However, in the event that you still owe the university, they can then request the university to provide you with a letter confirming that you have attained your a Bachelor of Degree and you were able to graduate at the university. But we would still then need you to submit the completion certificate, the degrees completion certificate at a later stage to us. Thanks.
So we need to have passed 3 CPDs by the 31st of June.
No, you need to, sorry, let's just go back to those dates. I'm not sure where you have got the 31st of June. You need to have submitted 6 CPDs, and by the time results are released on the 23rd of June 2023, you need to have been competent in 3 of these, because there's not another release date between the closing of bookings, between the release of results and closing of bookings. So the 30th of June, there isn't a release date on that time. You are looking at the 2nd of June and the 23rd of June. So submit by the 2nd of June, results by the 23rd of June.
If I started my internship in February and I've only submitted 3 CPDs, do I still qualify for the practice exam that will be written in June?
There are no criteria that apply to the practice examination, so anyone is allowed to write the practice exam regardless of your date of registration, your CPDs, or your progress reports. So there's no conditions.
Is it possible that I write the practice exam in June, but I may only write the exam in October? Or must I write the practice exam only in August? Please clarify, as I heard there's no specific criteria for the practice exam.
You're more than welcome to write the practice exam in June and the exam in October. You can also write the practice exam in June and repeat the practice exam for a second time and then write in October. So you just need to have completed the practice examination once.
I am a Namibian citizen on a working visa. I got my degree in South Africa. What is my process for ComServe placement?
Natalie, I'm going to ask Kamo or Kotsuko to take this one.
So in terms of the placement for community service, the National Department of Health, working with the ICSP, is the ones that are responsible for the requirements or the conditions that are placed for community service. So please, you are welcome to contact the National Department of Health or go into the ICSP website and they will be able to assist you with your inquiry. Thank you.
Do we write the practice exam under the same conditions as the actual exam regarding the camera usage?
Yes.
For an academic intern, which are the 3 progress reports we need to complete? PPD, sectoral, and the third one?
So academic interns do not need to worry about submitting their progress reports before the exam. I'm not sure if they're referring to the exam, the progress reports, or if they're referring to progress reports in general.
Perhaps that intern can send a follow-up.
Okay, but all of this is mentioned in the intern shooter manual, so they can refer to that.
Thanks. Will we be provided with the online reference resources or have to download our own? And do we use other physical books?
So the online references that Pharmacy Council provides, you can open these during the practice exam. And what we suggest is you open these copies and you download them during the practice exam. Therefore, you can use these when preparing for the actual exam. And on the actual day of the exam, then you don't have to worry about opening or downloading these copies again. So we would say take the opportunity during the practice exam to download and open all of the copies of these PDF documents. However, in the actual exam, you will have access to this tab and you can open any of these documents that we have available to you.
In terms of the months criteria for an academic intern to write the pre-reg exam, I have been registered since February 2023 and I would like to write the October exam. That would be in my 8th month of internship. Will the 3 CPDs competent and submitted all 6 CPDs rules still apply?
So the intern can calculate this according to their date of registration and the date of the examination. Okay, so they'll need to have a look. I can't say offhand whether they would qualify or not in terms of the 8-month rule or the 6-month rule. So if they just have a look and calculate that, we look at it in terms of 5 months of completed practice or 8 months of completed practice. And then we would apply the 6-month rule or the 9-month rule.
Please give us the SAPC WhatsApp number.
The SAPC WhatsApp number would be communicated to interns in the communication prior to the examination. So this comes normally the day before the exam. In the meantime, you're welcome to contact the SAPC on the variety of different sources. You can phone them, you can contact them on social media, or you can email them. So for now, use these other routes of communication, but the WhatsApp numbers for the day of the exam.
Are interns allowed to write in one room if they work at the same place, but not help each other?
Kamo, if you can confirm this one, please.
Okay, so we normally advise that if it's in a computer lab, obviously the interns would be in one room, but they will be properly spaced out. But if you are, say, in sharing a flat, we advise that interns use different rooms to write the examinations in that situation. Thanks.
Will you be placed later for your community service year if you write the exam in October?
Kamo?
I'm sorry, Ned, can you please repeat the question?
Sure. Will you be placed later for your community service year if you write the exam in October?
Okay. So in terms of placement, we communicate the outcome of the intern's results to the Department of Health. So the first outcome would be for the August exam that we would communicate, and they would then communicate with the interns in terms of the first group of placements. In October as well, the same, once we release the results, we will communicate those ones that are successful in the examination, are competent in the CPD, to the Department of Health. And in terms of the placements, the ones that are successful in the exam and competent in the same year. So if you write this October this year and you are successful in the exam and competent, the Department of Health will still place you. The ones that are not successful in the exams and after the October examination would then not be considered for placement and would only be considered in the next year, because the exam then, the next exam would be in March the next year. Thank you.
Can you please repeat what are the consequences of submitting on the 28th of June?
If you submit on the 28th of June, by the time you get your results in July, on the 21st of July, you will be unable to book for the pre-registration examination.
Sorry, Nat, can I just expand on that? So in terms of the interns that are in the 6 month of internship, you need to have submitted 6 CPD entries and be competent in 3 of those. So if by the 23rd of June, you're not competent in 3 CPD entries, you are definitely going to miss the exam. But if you are competent in three CPD entries, and say for an example that you had not submitted the other 3 entries, and you submit them before the closing date, so you would be covered by the late booking, as long as you've submitted those other 3 CPD entries. But if you've not submitted any CPD entries or 6 CPD entries by the 19th of July, when the booking closes, then you would not be eligible to sit for the exam. So it's important that by the 23rd of June, all interns that intend to sit for the exam are competent in 3 CPD entries. But the ones that have not submitted all the 6 CPD entries will be covered after that, will be covered by the late booking. But this means that this covers only the entries that are submitted, and there's no expectation for you to expect to have results for to have CPD competence in the CPD entry submitted after the 28th of June.
Thanks, Kamal. Can I submit 6 CPDs before the 2nd and get feedback for all of them?
Sorry, Cam, are you able to take this one? So
yeah, so if you've
it is my
submitted,
assumption. Sorry.
Sorry, Dan, yes.
So it is my assumption that everything that is submitted by the 2nd of June would be released by the 23rd of June.
That is
You would
correct.
get feedback on all 6.
Yes, that is correct. And remember, interns, submission doesn't mean submission on your side. Submission means that your tutor should have verified those CPD entries as well. So if you submit your CPD entries on the 2nd of June and your tutor has not verified those CPD entries, that is not considered as submission. Submission is only after the tutor has verified your CPD entries and we receive them on our side that is considered as submission. So please be careful about that.
Can you please make clear what reference material is not allowed? For example, are we allowed handwritten notes?
You would be permitted handwritten notes. So what is not allowed is, so for example, we would guard against you Googling any answers. So, so Googling information would not be considered ethical in terms of the paper. There's no websites that are prohibited per se, but we would really suggest that you stick to the guidelines in terms of what has been provided. Think about the Department of Health website, the Pharmacy Council website, the SAPRA website, and those should be your go-to options in terms of your references.
If we are only allowed to use our cell phones for the examination, will we still be allowed to look at our messages for the OTP PIN?
Yes, you will be able to retrieve your OTP PIN. And also what you need to consider is that your OTP PIN is also sent via email. And that would be probably available on your cell phone or your laptop. So there are 2 ways that it is sent, but yes, you can use your cell phone to retrieve your PIN.
Good evening, ma'am. Should I choose to write at the SAPC offices, do I book prior to that? As in, do I notify the council first or I can turn up on the day?
You would need to notify the council beforehand, so please make sure that you're in contact with them if you think that you would be needing to write at the SAPC offices, so they do need to prepare for your arrival.
If it happens one fails the August examination, can they write the one in October, or is there an exam set aside for them? Is there a fee to be paid or none?
Okay, so interns who are unsuccessful in the October examination would be allowed to in the August examination will be allowed to rewrite in the October examination. You're allowed to write on two occasions without paying an additional fee. So if you fail the exam in August and you fail in October, you'd only have to pay in March when you do it for a 3rd time. So the fee is only applied on the 3rd attempt of the examination. And there's no special examination for interns who have been unsuccessful in the exam. Remember that they will write at the next sitting, and they'll write both the general section and the calculation section.
If we don't have a laptop, would a tablet be sufficient?
I'm just going to refer this one to Kamal in terms of the software.
Sorry, Ned, can you repeat the question? I was a bit distracted, yes.
If we don't have a laptop, would a tablet be sufficient?
Okay, so in terms of the requirements for the exam, we must be able to see you and we must be able to see your environment. So if your tablet can be positioned similarly to how a laptop or a desktop can be positioned, it can be used. But if there is no way that you would be able, if you would have to hold your tablet in your hand, that will not be sufficient. I hope that clarifies.
Thanks, Kamal. Our tutors must submit progress reports every 12 weeks, but the requirements say they need to submit 3 before the exam. Isn't it only 2 possible?
Kamal, this there are 2 progress reports that they would submit right at 12 weeks, and then there's one at 24, if I'm not mistaken. So those are the 3 that they are referring to.
That is correct, yes.
If I do not have access to another electronic device, can I use a phone for writing the exam and another phone for the invigilation if I'm not close to the SAPC office in Pretoria?
Unfortunately, you may only have a phone that is going to be used for invigilation. You cannot use a phone to access the website to write the exam.
Are we allowed to open up another browser?
Yes, you may open up another browser. You may not use a second screen and you may not use a second device, but you can open up multiple windows on the same device and a different browser.
If I only reach my 9th month on the 7th of August, do I fall under the 6th month or the 9th month when I write on the 2nd of August?
Sorry, Nat, so the person is reaching, so I just want to confirm they're reaching it on the 7th of August.
Yes.
So on the 7th of August, so on the day of the examination, they, in order to qualify for the 5-month rule, they must have completed 5 months. As soon as they've completed 8 months, they then fall into the 9-month rule. So if they are between 7 and 8, if they haven't yet completed 8 months, it means that they fall into the 6-month rule. So they just need to go back to their date of registration and calculate it as completed months.
How do we book for the practice exam?
Booking for the practice exam is the same as booking for the real examination. You will be notified as soon as bookings open. You go onto your profile, onto your secure page, enter in your P number, your password, and your ID number. You would then follow the block and it's under book for the examination. So you click on pre-registration examination and then you would press on book for the exam. So it's done through the SAPC website, through the secure site.
Just in addition, Diane, to say that booking for the practice exam is opened and communication was sent on Tuesday. I hope that interns have received that communication and that booking will close on the 22nd of May. So they just need to make sure that they continue or they go onto the website just as you have explained and log on and commence with the booking. Thank you.
Are academic interns allowed to write the practice exam as many times as we want if we will only be writing the exam in 2024?
We always suggest that you would, so writing it now, yes, you can write it more than once. So they may write it at each occasion prior to the examination. So there's nothing stopping them from writing it more than once, but they only need to write it once. And I would suggest that if they are only going to write it once, that to do it in close proximity to the exam. But they're more than welcome to do it now, and they can repeat it again in September, and they can repeat it again then in 2024. There's no limitation.
Can we use our tablets during the exam to refer to reference material and write on for calculations, etc.?
No, you may only use one device. Your second device is your phone, and that's for invigilation, and you may not use any other device during the examination. So you can't use a third device. What we suggest is that you use a pen and paper to write down any of the calculations that you may be doing, and you'd need to have a calculator, or you can use the calculator function on your computer, your laptop, but you wouldn't be able to use a tablet.
How will the cell phone be used to invigilate? I'm confused.
Okay, so it's an invigilation software that you are going to link to, and it basically, we need to have your laptop or your desktop having a camera which faces you, and then you'll have a camera and your cell phone placed on your side view so that we can get a side view of you. So we have a front view and a side view. So you're going to need to place a desk or somewhere in the room. You're going to have to place the phone so that we can see you side on. And this is to ensure that there is no one in your environment that is assisting you during the examination. So that's why we've got these two devices. And each device needs to have a camera so that we're getting two views of you, a front view and a side view. The exact placing of the device, there's actually instructions. They're very, very easy to follow, and they're going to tell you exactly what to do on the day of the exam and how to log on, so you don't have to worry.
Sorry, Ned, just to add also, just to add also that the cell phone that is going to be used for the exam, the intern would need to click from the laptop or the desktop that they're using QR code to link that cell phone to the exam platform. Thank you. But all the instructions step by step will be sent to the interns prior to the exam, prior to the practice exam event dates.
Thanks, Kamal. Will we get the results for the practice exam the same day after we write?
Kamal, if you can confirm when those practice results will be released?
Yes, the practice results will not be released the same day. So the practice exam is on Thursday, the 1st of June. So interns can expect the results then on the 5th of June. Thank you.
I hope this does not come as a silly question. I started my internship on the 1st of February 2023. Therefore, my 6th month of practice falls on the 1st of August if we count 1st of Feb to 1st of March, etc. as a complete month. Will I be allowed to sit for the August exam if I will be completing the 6th month on the 1st of August?
So you need to have completed 5 months, not 6 months of practice. So you need to be in your 6th month. So as long as you've completed 5 months on the day of the examination, you'll be allowed to book.
Some of us haven't received feedback from the previous CPD cycle, even though the CPDs were submitted and tutor verified before the deadline. Can you please advise on this issue?
I know that Tabang is with us. Maybe that she can take this question in terms of feedback for CPDs.
Okay, thank you, Deanne, and good evening, interns and colleagues. Interns who haven't, as far as I know, we have released all the results, and the few queries that we have been receiving were such of a nature wherein we find that the interns have submitted, but the tutors haven't. The interns have submitted for verification, but the tutors haven't submitted for assessment. So those who are having queries, please contact the office and we will be able to assist you. Maybe if you can send the emails or register your queries tomorrow, we'll be able to assist you. Thank you.
Does the software monitor the desktop? Am I allowed to open WhatsApp on the computer?
No, you will not be allowed to open up WhatsApp on your computer, and it does monitor your desktop. So we are able to see what you are looking at on your computer.
Is it not one progress report at 12 weeks and 2 progress reports at 24 weeks?
Kamal, perhaps I got this wrong. If you could confirm, please.
Let me just go there. So it's the 12 weeks. It's got the 2 progress. It's the 12 weeks personal, and it's got the a professional development report, and it's the 24 weeks personal and professional development, and the third one is the sectoral experience checklist.
Will I be able to write the first pre-registration exam if I submit 3 CPDs and am competent in all 3?
No, you would need to submit. Yes, you do need to submit the 3 and be competent in 3, but overall you need to have submitted 6. So even if you submit 3 and are competent in 3, if there are 3 outstanding for submission, you will not be allowed to book. So you need to have submitted all 6 and be competent in 3.
When booking to write at the SAPC office, do you book under remote other?
No, if you're writing at the Pharmacy Council office, you can contact Mr. Maloka and he'll provide further guidance in terms of writing at the office if there's not an option to book for Arcadia on the website when you are booking. You are then welcome to contact the office and I'm sure they'll be able to accommodate you.
Are we allowed to use the answers for the calculations we just did now as a reference during the exam, or like the equation that we're given as a guide on our own notes?
You may use all the material that we have given you in preparation for the examination. You may prepare a piece of paper with formulas, etc. You may bring in those things into the examination.
Are we allowed to use the same phone that will be used to invigilate to hotspot our laptop?
Yes, as long as you don't need to do anything on this phone. So if you can activate your hotspot and it's not going to cause any problems and you can leave it for invigilation on the one side, you would then be able to use your laptop to complete the exam. So as long as you don't have to worry about it and be up, like back and fro in terms of trying to sort it out, it should be fine. But you would be able to use it. There's no rule against that.
If I submit 4 CPDs by the 2nd of June and pass 3 of the CPDs by the 23rd of June, and then submit the last 2 CPDs by the 28th of June, do I qualify for the August exam?
You would just have to make note of the dates in terms of the communication that I know will be sent out by the office. It will clearly state when you need to book by. And remember, I explained that you need to take into consideration your tutor who's going to be verifying your CPD, as well as not waiting until the last day. So those dates will be communicated to the interns. They normally come on an email to the interns. So just check in terms of that final booking closure date, and then you'll be able to work out if you can submit by the 28th.
If we did not submit 2 progress reports at 12 weeks, can we submit 2 at 24 weeks?
If there are any outstanding progress reports, so if you only submitted 1 at 12 weeks, submit the second one as soon as possible. So if there's anything outstanding, don't wait until the next date, submit it as soon as possible.
If I choose to write the practice exam in August, September, will another communication be sent out for applying, or must we apply now?
No, you only need to apply now if you intend writing in June. Communication will be then sent out for the August practice exam. So you only have to worry about booking when you would like to write the exam. So it's too early to now book for the August exam.
In terms of domain 3, the two most popular CPDs are dispensing of a script and compounding. But I've heard of people who weren't successful in the CPDs because the marker wasn't convinced an intern has done that before. If you haven't done domain 3, what option does that leave you with?
I'm going to ask Tabang if she can take this one again.
Okay, thank you, Deanne. In terms of the domains, interns are expected to choose competency standards from each of the 6 domains. So even from domain 3, they are expected to choose one. And then domain 5, they only have in 5.3, which is compulsory. So unfortunately, there's no alternative. You just have to play around the competency standards, because the good thing is the most CPDs, they're having a number of competency standards where the interns can choose those that are most applicable to their setting. Thank you.
Thanks, Tabang. Deanne, that appears to be the last question for now. I think we should give the interns a minute or two to submit any further questions. We have posted the attendance register and survey links. If we can just ask that all interns and any tutors who are with us, please do complete one of the 2 links. Interns, it is compulsory. We do need to mark your attendance.
Sorry, Nate, may I?
Yes, Kamal.
So the SAPC venue has been opened, so interns that intend writing at the SAPC venue can book online for their practice exam. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. Deanne and Kamal, with regards to the attendance register, there's no option for the Limpopo province. What should interns select?
Natalie, I think the important part is that all the interns do complete the, I think it's important that everyone completes it. I think there may be another option that they could perhaps click on if they can't find Limpopo in the list. But the most important thing is that they have provided us with their details. So please make sure that you do complete it, and that we will be able to track it from your P number. So selecting the province is not going to be critical to you answering the form.
Thanks. Does how you score in the practice exam affect your eligibility for the pre-reg exam?
No, the practice exam is purely formative. So it informs you in terms of how well you are doing, how well you can use your references, etc. It has got no bearing in your progression, and it does not count in any way towards your internship. The only reason you need to do it in order to write the actual exam so that you experience the exam conditions, but you don't need to obtain any mark in them. We do say that take it as seriously as you can, because this is really your opportunity to experience questions in the examination environment, the online invigilation. So take it seriously so that the next time you write the examination, you know exactly what to do.
Please clarify again. Does it mean we cannot use pharmacology apps on our phones?
You cannot use your phone at all. If the app has got a version that you can use on your laptop, you can use it. But you cannot use your phone for any reason. Your phone is going to be on the side, and that is going to be used for the invigilation part of the examination. You can activate the hotspot, and you'll be able to retrieve your OTP. Other than that, you will not be able to use your phone for any reference material.
If your 6th month of internship is in September, are you allowed to write in October, or you'll have to wait for March?
On the date of the examination, you need to have completed 5 months. So calculate that from your date of registration. So if you registered on the 1st of January, when you have completed, so you would have then completed 6 months in, so at the end of May, by the 1st of June, you would have completed 5 months of practice. So calculate that in terms of the number of months that you have completed. So count from your date of registration until the date of the exam.
Is the standard and level of questions of the practice exam and the pre-reg exam the same?
It is very similar in terms because it's created on the same blueprint. So it's not identical to the questions that you are going to receive, but it is of a similar standard.
Okay, it looks like that was the last question, Deanne.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you for the interns and good luck for the upcoming exam. And thank you to the office for having this session, and I'll hand back over to Kamal.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Deanne. Thank you to our examiner and moderator. Thank you, Osrefile. Thank you, Prof. Steenekamp, for taking the interns through the general and the calculation section of the examinations. Thank you so much to the office. Thank you to our CSR team. You've been wonderful. Thank you so very much for all your assistance with the workshop. But most importantly, thank you to the interns who attended these workshops. These workshops were made for you to assist you in preparing for the examination. So I hope that the information shared with you during these workshops was useful, and that you feel well prepared for the examinations. And please, if you have any questions, please do contact us. We have given you the contact details, and there is an email address that was shared at the end of the slides, which is the pre-reg exam workshop at sapc.za.org. Please do contact us there, and please also contact us. You can also contact us through the customer care, and you can also contact us via the submit request if there's any assistance that you require, especially with your CPDs. But thank you so very much for your attendance, and we wish you all the best for this internship year. And please do enjoy your internship year and work together with your tutors. Yeah, thank you so much.